Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Kim Pagano Show, the brighter side of life. And of course, life in business happens to us every single day. And of course, we are in our political months right now. We're down to the wire. And I know you're probably going political. Kim doesn't talk about political. I don't talk about political, but what I do talk about is division. And division is not something that I love. And we were talking just a couple minutes briefly before this, and really just saying, if you like wine and I like beer, can't we just have a drink together? But if you vote for one side of the, one president and somebody votes for another president, is that a problem? And it has divided our world. It has divided some families. It has divided some parents and couples. And so today I'm really excited. Of course, our sponsor, who's been my friend and he just helps so many people in the community. Norman Thatcher, he is the facilitator and owner of TNT Anger Management. And of course, Scott Barela, we've talked before, and he is a MSLMFT and Cornerstone. And they're both here to really give us some tips and tricks when we are caught in those unfamiliar, or I guess I want to call them danger zones, right? That you just freeze and go, how do I talk about this? So, welcome and thank you so much for being here. Norman, welcome. Let's start with you. Tell everybody, you've been on so many times, so many years, and I love what you do and how you help the community. Talk about a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, Norman Thatcher, facilitator and owner of TNT Anger Management Services in Westlake Village. I've also opened up an office in Woodland Hills. So basically, I've been with Kim for a few years now, and I always love coming on her show.
Thank you. Thank you. And Scott, welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thanks for having me back, Kim. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you, Norma, as well. And I just want to say Cornerstone Counseling has been around for 28 years. We are a big provider of a variety of different counseling services in LA and Ventura County with multiple locations and Zoom. We have mostly court-ordered programs, but we do individual psychotherapy, family therapy, work with children, work with adults. And yes, I'm excited to be back on the show. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So let's talk about this. First of all, Scott, you kind of mentioned this, the division in families, couples, right? And talk to us like, here we are, we see it on our social pages. What can we do at this point to stay neutral, to stay Switzerland, as they call it, right?
Sure,
And
sure.
not alienate anybody, and
Sure.
also have a voice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what happened to our freedom of speech?
So yes, it is a complex topic, one of the most challenging topics any family or any friend group or even any coworker group can start discussing is politics, right? And sometimes we have to be very sensitive to the other person's viewpoints, the other person's perspective, their own life experience, and where that brings them to. And then you have the issues and the policies and the practices of the politicians themselves. Some people get rallied around a particular issue or particular policy, how it affects them personally, as well as what they see in the greater community, right? And so they may be very passionate about these topics, right? And if you don't know them because you haven't really spoken about those topics with them previously, it can erupt very quickly into a very significant discussion and tense discussion. So I always tell people to check yourself a little bit before you even begin bringing up certain topics, because it is sensitive. You want to have that, I'll say, discussion savvy, what to bring up, when to bring up, how much to say, what not to say. And then when you do detect somebody is getting a little bit more passionate about a subject, possibly contradicting your previous point of view, then I think you need to say, I'm sorry if I offended you by what I just said, and try and dial it back a bit and look for places of agreement, which is nice, but then also have if they're willing to have a healthy debate about the differences. But it always has to remain civil. The minute it starts to become, I'll say, more dynamic and charged and intense, you need to consider taking a break from the conversation entirely, which would mean like a timeout. We're just going to walk away. We're going to agree to disagree, but then we're going to kind of part ways here. And that could be with, anybody, a family member, a child. Adult children have their own perspectives. A lot of adult children are voters and they have their political belief system different from their own parents within the same home. So
Right.
that can really, and again, in 2016, 2020, even as the recent 3 years, we've had a lot of division within families around politic topics, right? So
Well,
that's some
thank
tips.
thank you, Scott. Norman, of course. Now, when that escalates, that's where you come in, and you can't, some people can't retract. All of a sudden, they've like gone over the line. They're not going to, hear it's like almost, what do they call it? Charlie Brown, "Nyah, nyah, nyah," and they can't hear you. They can't hear
Yes.
you apologize, right? What do we do? That's your expertise.
Well, what I would do is just remember all individuals have the right to their opinions. They have the right to choose what they want to believe in, and that's what this whole country is based on. What I would suggest is if this is something that a couple, adult children, like Scott said, can't even have a conversation with their parents about, or even with each other, I would suggest, hey, look, why don't we set up, not all counseling appointments are meant for long term, but if you have one issue like a political view and you can't agree to that, set up an appointment and I will mediate just so you can communicate with each other. And that's basically what I do, is kind of mediate to keep the marriage together, to keep the family together. Not say you're going to lose your right or your opinion, but I just want to make sure that families stay together and don't get split up between, separate views of what their beliefs are.
I love that. I love that. So we could even dig deeper. There's the homelessness. There's you know, just issues on so many different topics. And, how do we bring a family together to even talk about, coping skills, right? Maybe one adult child wants to move out and now he has to move back in, and one parent's okay with it, one parent's not. What are some of those things, like how do we get through that in life? Who can address that?
I could take it on. So there's a few options for people that are struggling in that area. One would be to, like Norm said, book an appointment with a counselor, talk with a facilitator, counselor, a therapist, a mediator, to help facilitate the dialogue so that there is a even playing field of vocalizing your opinions, your beliefs, and what they would like to do next, right? So we explore options. Another thing would be to have everybody jot down sort of almost like a journal kind of entry of what their concerns are, right? And bring those to the table as a way of pre-work before they even come to the appointment, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you think you know the issues because you've had a few brief discussions or one big blow up, but really there's a lot beneath the surface that people are thinking about, right? And maybe it ties into history of the family, things that have been unresolved for many, many years, ill feelings, bad events that have happened in the past. So those can bubble up to the surface with one political topic that brings it all to the surface, right? So I would say counseling is recommended, individual psychotherapy or family therapy.
I love that. And you think about, I mean, we're just on one topic right here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it is either learn, You know, you've either inherited from a family member,
Mhm.
you've been taught something that maybe that's an
Mhm.
old
Mhm.
story that you just keep bringing up. I mean, Norman, you probably deal with this. Well, you probably both deal with this a lot, where you have somebody come in, and as you dig deeper, you're like, oh, my dad used to do this, or oh, my mom
Mhm.
used to do this.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I didn't even realize this is where it's coming from, right? Talk to us a little bit about that, Norman.
Well, that's why I really encourage, you know, my consultations. Hey, let's just come in, see what, just to see what things are happening with you, obviously, as an individual. It could be as a couple, it could be as a family. And when I come in, they'll say, oh, well, yeah, we just argue a little bit. I said, okay. So after getting to know them, I brought in a couple months back, and they literally went on saying how great things were. Like we get along 80%, and we do this, and we go camping, and we do blah 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 blah. And then at the end, it was like, oh, but there's no trust, and that just triggered after 45 minutes of beautiful togetherness. Like I had to cancel my next appointment and just go with another hour with them because I couldn't leave them like to even drive home together. So you got to play the whole thing out all the way through, and yeah. So
Wow.
you just never know what people are thinking, and like Scott said, they're just coming in for the tip of the iceberg, and because there's so much other things underneath it. I wish there was more time for people than an hour because I think they really need more time, and that's why people do sometimes multiple classes a week.
That's really interesting. And I think that I've heard of family meetings. Scott, have you ever thought of that or like suggest that to people, family meetings, so that it doesn't escalate, you
Sure.
know? So like every
Yeah.
Sunday, you know, it's either a
Yeah.
meeting,
Mhm.
hey, how did this week go for you? Was there anything
Yeah.
I did that
Yeah.
really upset you, you know?
Yeah, those are check-in meetings. Sometimes they're scheduled, sometimes they're impromptu meetings. But the idea is to get the issues out on the table. I would rather hear about it, bring it to the surface, than leave it beneath the surface and just be tense in the house all week, right? So the idea of a bring it forward meeting, every idea is a good idea. We're not going to judge you based on those ideas. We'd rather have a conversation about them than just pretend they don't exist, which builds the tension, and that leads to the explosions like Norm and I both see it in anger management or domestic violence type situations. I mean, these are explosive topics that blow up at some point, right? There's a reason why the police got more calls in the pandemic years, and because people are home, they're tense, there's stress, there's money issues, there's political problems that defy solution sometimes, and you have these families trying to cope with it all,
Right.
and
You know,
those blow up.
great comment. And you know, I am really active on like a lot of the moms groups, and I
Mhm.
see right now we're at back to school time now,
Mhm.
and a
Mhm.
lot of people are like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just not feeling it. I'm depressed.
Mm, mm,
I'm
mhm,
anxious. I'm having, you know, what are so why is it? Is it like all of a sudden the kids go back to school now they're just more prevalent on what they're feeling? What's your thoughts?
Well, I just had a new individual client who came in. Everything was going well for about the last 3 to 4 weeks, and then last week he had to cancel an appointment because he had to get kids to school and do other things. And I get it. So now it's, oh, I physically have to get my kid to, point B at 8 a.m. Oh, I have to get him back home and have to be there at 3 p.m. Where in the summer it was kind of like lax and kick back. There was no homework. Yeah, when the kids bring their homework, they're bringing it to mom and dad. And I remember just my own experience when my daughter was going through middle school and high school, and she had, uh, you know, calculus in these classes, and mom said, oh, go give it to dad. I said, I have no clue of how to do this.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, okay, it's just the additional stress of children having more responsibilities, which obviously is going to come back
Mhm.
on the parents.
Absolutely. So you get a little overwhelmed. You already have your load. Now you have your children's load. Now maybe husband or wife, maybe they're having, problems at work. That's another load. What are some tips? One, obviously to see both of you, but and to go and speak to somebody, because just taking it off your chest just gives you so much relief. And also I call it like a reflection. Somebody else can reflect on your problems. But what are some tips going back to school right now in this political 3 months of like
Sure.
anxiousness, unsureness of our
Hmm.
country, the wars that we're in,
Hmm. Hmm.
going to the grocery store
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
everything's so expensive.
Right.
What can we do?
I think the first thing is control what you can control first. Take what you can on, make sure you create to-do lists, make sure you're checking those things off as you complete them, celebrate the accomplishments of the day, feel really good about those things, and then move on to the next day. And again, prioritization is key. I use to-do lists. I use calendarization of items. I make sure I know what I got to get done, when I got to get it done, and what is in my control and what is not in my control. And I do the best I can with the things that are out of my control. So that means letting people know of your concerns and issues, but kind of leaving it there, right? And then moving on to the next thing you can accomplish for the day. And when you have children, there's so much to do, whether it's shopping, whether it's getting them ready for school, whether it's doing homework, whether it's the extracurriculars, which so many kids are doing so many things. I see families where their kids are in multiple extracurricular sports, music, scouting, a lot of academic decathlons, whatever the case may be. They're always promoting children to be well equipped for life, but also sometimes stretched thin. And that also brings back to the point about the parents being moving all around, dropping kids off in multiple places, having a lot on their plate. So it does add anxiety and stress to the workload of the week. But managing your emotions, getting to-do lists, making sure you are in control of what you can get done and accomplishing that.
I love it.
And if I could,
Yeah,
if,
please.
if I could, yeah, I'm sorry, Kim, if I could just add to what Scott's saying, that's part of my interventions also. There are there are work booklets that so people physically have items they can take home and write these goals, interventions, time management, structure their day. And I found it, and they've found it to be very helpful. I just wanted to add that.
No, I love that. I know for me, when I get overloaded, I have to I kind of look at my plate and go, okay, I'm an overachiever. So what can I take off of my plate that's not going to really matter right now? And so I put my priorities in, and I love checking things off, Scott. So that, and I'm like, my husband's like a list of a list of a list of a list, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Yeah.
like, that's what makes me feel
Mm-hmm.
like accomplished and know that I'm
Right.
not losing track of my life and all
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
things that I have to be in charge of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's really simple tools like that. I know it goes back to the basics, listing things out, prioritization, even as simple as an ABC method, right? What are my
talk to
A
us
items,
about
B
that.
items, C items? It's simple, right? And then you just get those A items done today. Sure, sometimes you're gonna have to roll it over a day, maybe even a week, but you're still gonna have organization. You're gonna feel more in control of your life.
Wow, I love that. And Scott, do you teach that when you're working with people?
Sure, absolutely. I do what's called cognitive behavioral intervention strategies. I think Norm does too. We teach life skills in our book. I wrote a book on life skills for men and one for women, and so that's a tool that we teach at Cornerstone.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Mhm.
I think every teen should. I want to have you come back just for that book, okay? Because I
Okay,
think that's so important. And
sure,
I would love
sure,
you to send me one of those.
sure.
So yeah,
Will
I think
do.
that's so important. Organization, when like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and my husband's like, "Oh God, she's working harder than she does in the day." And I'm like already, I have a pad next to my bed so that I could
Hmm.
just dump on it,
Right.
get everything out so I can go back to sleep. But
Hmm.
it's like it's an alarm clock, right?
Hmm.
Norm, you're laughing, but you know me really good. I am like the organized queen.
Yeah, yeah. Even as late as last night when I was doing some just last minute prep for the show, I had my clients. I had dinner with the family, took a shower, and then my wife went to bed and I had my little lamp on and she goes, "What are you doing now? I thought you were done." I said, "Oh, I am, but this is for tomorrow's project." So she's like, "Okay, whatever, just do you and then go to bed."
Yeah, and you know what? And that's a really good practice also, is to see what you got done in the day and then figure out what you need to have a good running start into your next day.
Mhm.
So when you wake up, because I always tell my children, right, take care of what you've done today, because tomorrow will be a whole new set of
Mhm.
excitement, right?
Absolutely.
I want to say
Right.
excitement
Yes.
on the positive side of it. Yeah, well, I love
Yes.
this. Really good tips. Is there anything that you can add to it that we've missed that can help people? And then I just really want to share how they can get in touch with both of you.
Just recapping, patience through this political process. Again, things may be tense at home, different policies, different belief systems, different voting strategies. But the idea is to just have dialogue, be open-minded, share concerns if need be. And as families, do your best to bring the issues positively to the surface without keeping them buried underneath and exploding later.
I love that. Norman?
I agree 100% with everything Scott just said. I guess my intervention would be to verbalize your right to say what you think. I'm not going to take a side, but just go out and vote. 17% of people don't even understand what they're voting about, and they're not interested. So read up on the information and just get out there. Your single vote does count.
I love it. I love that. That's very good. And you know what? And have a voice. So many of us get shut down, and it's all about you count. We all count. And I want everybody to just realize how important they are. So, you guys, thank you so much. Norman Thatcher, TNT Anger Management, Scott Barela, and of course, Cornerstone Counseling. And I'm Kim Pagano, the brighter side of life and business. I hope that you tune in every Saturday morning and, of course, download our podcast so that you can take us with you. And again, have a great rest of your day and make sure that you are doing you. Thank you.